Here for more on them in a second. You're the reason, really, that ONE has been successful in its mission. And you've come together in Florida to have an impact. And you also have a big share in our biggest national victory from 2008, which is the One Vote 08 campaign. I mentioned Tobias, he runs our office in Berlin. They have elections coming up. He'd heard about what we were doing at the conventions and some other things related to the presidential election last year. And he wanted to get a little window into it because that's just not very common to try to incorporate these issues into national elections in Germany. I said, come over and ride the ONE bus around a little bit. And I think he came here, he went to Pembroke Pines, rode the bus up to Gainesville, and his world has changed. He's now trying to figure out how to incorporate a lot of things he saw here into what they're doing in Germany. And let me just say, in that One Vote 08 campaign, every major contender from both parties made a public statement about the critical importance of fighting global poverty to our future security, health, and prosperity as a nation. That's really unprecedented, something we're all very, very proud of. Now, I could give a lot of speeches, hundreds of speeches that are not as important as some of the things that you've done. For instance, one member, Paula Diaz's visit to Representative Kendrick Mead's office, or Rafael Batista, who I just met. Rafael's efforts to grab Governor Chris at an event and tell him about ONE, or Danielle DePaz, who I met in Washington, speaking out at a town hall meeting with Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz, or Alex, Alex Gordon bringing our message to Representative Ileana Ros-Lehtinen during open office hours, or the Miami contingent's efforts on World AIDS Day, the generosity of Orlando's Northland Church for opening its doors and letting us all tell our story. I mean, clearly there are many, many more examples. But long story short, this is what advocacy is about. It's giving voice to the voiceless. And I think you should all give yourselves a great round of applause for our work. Today I want to talk a little bit about where we are, where ONE is, where we all are as an organization, and what the state of play looks like in Washington and around the world. I won't talk too long because there's lots more important stuff for us to do. But clearly this is a very important year for ONE, and more importantly for the fight against extreme poverty. We have huge opportunities, but also huge challenges in the current environment. So let me start with the Obama administration. The president himself, his vice presidents, national security advisor, defense secretary, secretary of state, UN ambassador, and others across the administration really have made unprecedented commitments to supporting human development in poor countries. Sometimes some people have referred to the new foreign policy focus as smart power, which would elevate global development and diplomacy into balance with defense in our global engagement toolkit. This makes a lot of sense given the very complex economic, political, and social challenges that we face around the globe. To carry out this smart power approach to foreign policy, you may have seen in the campaign, candidate Obama pledged to double foreign assistance. And in spite of the current economic trauma, has reiterated that commitment both in his budget and his recent announcements. And we're grateful for that. His 2010 budget request, which just came out recently, is really the most important measure of President Obama's commitment to ending poverty and deaths from preventable diseases. And I should say, and you probably all know this, but ONE welcomes their request for substantial increases to fight malaria, for agricultural development, food security, and the Millennium Challenge account, as well as overall long-term commitment to global health. I think they committed $63 billion over the next 6 years for global health funding, which is really quite breathtaking. Not all is perfect, however. We were disappointed that the proposed budget flatlined support for the Global Fund and made relatively small increases to the President's emergency plan for AIDS, PEPFAR, which I'm sure you all know about. And so, you know, all that says to us is we still have more work to do, and we still believe Congress must restore full funding for these programs over time, and we're working hard to see that that happens. Also, to make sure that our foreign assistance funding is as efficient, transparent, and as accountable as possible, the chairman and the ranking members of both the House and Senate Foreign Relations Committees, Senators John Kerry and Dick Lugar, Representative Howard Berman of California, and Ileana Ros-Lehtinen here of Miami, are all pushing legislation to reform America's foreign aid system. Really the important point here is that reform really must ensure that taxpayer-backed funds to help fight poverty and disease get to the people who need the help the most. I think that summed up the new foreign policy approach and the reform agenda. And I encourage all of you to take a look at the Senate Foreign Relations Committee website for the full text. But in the speech, he said, development and diplomacy must retake their rightful place alongside defense at the heart of America's foreign policy. And we totally agree with that statement. So the momentum that I think is in the air says a few things to me. First, I really don't think we've seen an administration as committed to the plight of the world's poorest people as this one. Although I do want to point out that former President Bush deserves enormous credit for greatly increasing U.S. support for disease eradication in Africa through PEPFAR and the Malaria Initiative, among other things. And President Obama clearly is building, and he says this himself whenever he talks about his focus on global health, he's clearly building on the Bush achievements and wants to sort of continue and even go further. So it's also important to note that we're not talking about charity here. The Obama White House sees America's efforts to help the world's poor lift themselves up as intertwined with our own security and prosperity. And when we're, basically, the notion is that when we're helping to stabilize struggling communities, we're transforming lives, working in the national interest, and promoting our own values. Second, I think we have to acknowledge that despite all this forward movement, huge challenges remain. The economic crisis is hitting us very hard here at home, but the results in the developing world are quite stark. This year alone, 100 million people could be pushed back below the $2 a day line after decades worth of real progress in which poverty rates across Africa, just take Africa, fell from 58 to 51%. And democratically elected African governments rose from 3 to 20. A quite dramatic decade is in peril if we don't maintain our focus and keep pushing back in spite of the economic downturn. There was a piece in the Washington Post last month by Africa's first elected female leader, the great leader of Liberia, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and she really summed up the stakes. She said, the citizens and leaders of rich countries should recognize how important their assistance has been to the new leadership in Africa and how appreciative most Africans are for this partnership. It would be a cruel irony if just as Africa began to succeed, its prospects were cut short by a crisis beyond its control. So, what should one do? What should we do together? I think our approach moving forward really boils down to 3 key points that I just want to share today. We have to hold our leaders to account. Everyone in this room needs to be ready to take actions, big or small, to make sure politicians keep their commitments. There are lots of people wriggling out of them right now saying, oh, the world is changing in ways they hadn't anticipated, and therefore all bets are off, and we can't let them get away with it. We need to push politicians to do the right thing, the strategic thing, by supporting efforts to fight poverty and disease. I can assure you the fight over the budget and other foreign aid priorities is going to be very intense in the weeks ahead. So we need you to stand up and be ready to move. Congress will vote on bipartisan foreign assistance legislation in coming weeks, and we'll take up the President's budget in a month or so. And in both cases, you're going to make the difference between success and failure. Second thing I want to emphasize today is that we must take advantage of the technology and resources at our fingertips. One recently launched a new website that empowers our members in an unprecedented way. At least that's what we think. We're very proud of it. It's a long time coming, and I know there's more that can be done, but we think it dramatically changes what we're capable of doing. The site includes a new groups tool so that you